Welcome to Straight Talk and Retirement, your no-hype source for financial advice and making informed choices about your retirement planning. Get on the phone to talk today at 314-931-5877 or text your question to 84126.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Now, here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Welcome to Straight Talk on Retirement. You're live and local, St. Louis's favorite financial call-in show. That's on here. Well, hello, St. Louis, and welcome to Straight Talk on Retirement. You're live and local, St. Louis's favorite financial call-in show. I'm Aaron Lapidus, Vice President of JBL Financial Services. Our office are located in beautiful, sunny Olivet, Missouri. Good morning, Dad. How are you doing?
I'm good to go, babe. How are you?
Doing well.
You did a nice job on that. I like that.
Thank you. Really try to make it work over here. How you doing?
I'm doing just great. My name's Jeff Lapidus. I'm the president of JBL Financial Services. Aaron said our office are located in beautiful downtown Olivet, Missouri. I'm a 40-year veteran of the financial services area, a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager. And I've got my crew, as you know, my oldest, just getting 1 year older today, favorite prodigal daughter, Aaron Lapidus, who also is a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager, and Rob Markham, our life insurance and fixed annuity sales specialist.
Good morning.
Good morning, kiddies.
We help our clients make smart choices about their money. The way we do that is by designing a game plan, a written step-by-step strategy, a real game plan that has several goals in mind.
First is to preserve, protect, and prudently grow the assets our clients have taken their entire lifetimes to accumulate. Second is to deliver a reliable stream of income, one that they can count on, so they can do all the things they'd like to do during retirement.
And third is cost-effectively addressing their health care needs, like helping individuals enroll in Medicare and choosing the right plan to couple with their Medicare coverage.
And then when they're done enjoying their assets during their lifetime, we show them how to pass them on to the people they love, whether it's their spouses or children, grandchildren, churches, or charities, whoever it might be, with Uncle Sam or the tax courts taking a big bite out of their money. And as their wealth managers, Aaron and I, watch their money every single day to make sure they're staying on track. And that's why they call us the retirement coaches. Well, again, gang, good morning. It's another beautiful day in the neighborhood.
It's 26 degrees here.
Happy birthday, babe. Whoop-de-doo.
Thank you. Yes, a joyous day for all.
Especially for your mom. She's going to get a nice dinner tonight.
For my birthday?
Well, she had you. She did all the work. I mean, what the hell?
Right, and you can't be there for it, so someone should enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Where
but we hope
I
you have
am is where the birthday is happening.
Well, I'd love to join you, but I won't be there this year. So
that's fair.
I hope you have a lot of fun this afternoon, and thanks so much for working on your birthday.
Someone's got to do it.
There you go.
Sacrifices must be made.
That's right.
Well, and just as a reminder, all of our clients are folks like you. They're over the age of 55. They'd like to retire, or they're already retired, and they're our listeners. And as Aaron said, our goal is to create a financial plan for them, which will create fun and hopefully some financial security for them. And we do want to remind everybody before we get into our content for the day, we're live and local. Our phone lines are open. Give us a call, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. And there are lots of ways you can keep in touch with us during the week if you'd like to.
That's right. Log on to our website, jblfinancial.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you can click on the Contact Us section and send us a question, a request for a coaching session, either financial, Medicare, or both. Or on the lower left-hand side of the screen, you can click Sign Up for our monthly newsletter. We call that the Coach's Corner. And we do keep the last 6 to 12 months archived on the website for you. This is only the second week of January. So we do have it's a moderately new newsletter.
That's fabulous. Are you going to talk about some of the content today?
Absolutely. We did spend a lot of time last week on a few of these articles, but just for a quick review, the first article is always an infographic, and it's a graph of retirement age expectations versus reality. And I think the good news for all of you that are still working, your expectations are longer. You're intended to work, you assume that you'll be working longer than the reality, and hopefully that means that you get to your retirement goals faster as opposed to being forced out in any way. The next article is balancing stocks and bonds in one fund. So this discusses what those balanced mutual funds look like and what their purpose might be in your portfolio. The next article is Fixed for Life. What can an annuity do for you? And I know that we were talking about having Rob discuss this in more detail last week, and we still have that on deck, hopefully for next week. And the last article is The Inflation Experience is Painful and Personal. So a little review of probably what everyone's been experiencing when they go to the grocery store and the gas pump, unfortunately, these last 12 months.
Absolutely. As Aaron said, we do keep those archived for your viewing, printing, or downloading convenience. Just go to our website, jblfinancial.com, and click on that Coach's Corner newsletter icon in the bottom left, or it shows up on every page, and we'd love for you to sign up and send it out to you every single month by email. One other very important button that's there, I think it's the upper right-hand corner, which is the Contact Us, right?
That's right. You can contact us for a coaching session or leave us a comment or a question. We even do try to check those during the show, so if you have a question and you'd prefer to email it in versus our text line at 84126, you're welcome to do that, and we'll try to get to it during the show.
And also your live calls, right? 314-931-5877. We would love to hear from you. Well, babe, I was going to say, while we're waiting for those calls and texts this morning, I know that as I've been doing client reviews for the year-end reviews, as well as having discussions with some newer folks, one of the biggest questions that they're asking me is, where should I invest my idle cash? And, I like to think of idle cash as being cash that's really in excess of money that you're really setting aside for, we call it your vault, your true emergency fund, your backup. And I did have a conversation with Sue this week, one of our clients who's 71 years old. And she mentioned to me that she had about $40,000 more than she needed in her vault. And where should we invest this money? I think that there are really two primary measures that we use in trying to answer that question. You're going to jump in, but that's okay. Okay.
Well, of course, Dad. The first would be liquidity. Does Sue need access to these funds in the next 12, 18, or even 24 months? So are we looking at funds that are being put in reserve to be consumed within the next 2 years, or is this something that's truly excess and we are looking for something long-term to potentially invest in? And then the second thing would be safety, which kind of follows suit with, is this a long-term investment? And, how does adding this money to my investment portfolio change my risk tolerance, depending upon where you've elected to invest that excess cash?
Yeah, that's really, and obviously there's some options. We want to discuss those, but let's go back to liquidity for a moment. Trying to match the maturities of when you need money with your cash assets is extremely important. So in Sue's particular case, I really queried her about whether it was home improvements or the next cruise or whatever it might be. Are we really going to need this money? Do you see needing this in the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months? And the answer to that question really took us along the path of matching the maturity of that money with the investments that she had. And so I thought would be a good idea this morning was for us to really go through what I consider a hierarchy of options that are available. And this isn't all-inclusive, but ones that she would include, which would really consider and really start with keeping things as liquid as possible to really answering that question is this truly money that can be invested for the long term? So why don't you help me out with those?
So the first option would probably be using a higher yielding money market account. You want to take a look at what your best options are, what the liquidity restrictions are, and if there are any fees associated with using one of these accounts. But in general, these provide significantly more liquidity for you with a higher rate of interest and with relative safety. So unlike your savings account where you have FDIC insurance, but you're probably earning very little interest, these accounts are SIPC insured, and they generally provide a higher rate of interest for you without locking your money up for any specific amount of time. However, you want to check with each potential money market option before you make a selection.
Yes, because most of these money market options are investing in government securities, so the risk of loss is low, but you want to make sure that you're not actually investing in something that has a overabundance of securities that could change market value if interest rates go up. But again, they're safe. The neat part is that with many of these money market accounts, we would certainly suggest if you can do these through a commercial bank or your savings and loan institution to keep that money liquid is good. And then certainly linking it to an existing either checking or other savings account so that you can then move money freely between these accounts as required. So that's probably the best higher yielding investment that you could have. It's certainly that has the best liquidity and obviously the lowest amount of fees. The second one would be is short-term or intermediate securities, which might probably include certificates of deposit issued by money market accounts, funds companies, or commercial banks or credit unions, where what we think of short-term is something that is less than a year. Intermediate being anything from 1 to basically 5 years. So matching that maturity so that you're not in a situation where you have to be forced to possibly break that CD, certificate of deposit, where you're incurring interest penalties, which can be pretty severe depending on the commercial bank or credit union that you're using, is something to consider. And again, before you go into something like this, you really want to understand where the lines are. And so it might be a possibility, and we certainly suggest this to clients in many cases, where what they're doing is maybe breaking up the maturities, a 6-month, a 12-month, an 18th month, so that what happens is every 6 months or so, as an example, you're rolling that initial money that you have into longer-term investments if it makes sense for you. The third one certainly is a fixed annuity. And fixed annuities are great because what they're doing is they're being backed by the credit worthiness, the financial assets of the issuing insurance company. They're not FDIC insured, but what happens is that you can, if you desire, lock a rate of interest in for, Rob, what periods of time are you seeing us locking rates in for with folks?
5 years, and I think the latest one was 5.45. So it's a pretty good rate.
Right, and there are some that are shorter, like a 3-year, and also some that go out in 7 years. So, and the neat part again with a fixed annuity is that the interest on that annuity will grow income tax deferred until the time that you decide to withdraw the money. And unlike an IRA account, the IRS doesn't require you to withdraw that interest at any certainly stipulated time or date or age. But the insurance company does chase that money out if you make it to age 95.
The other important thing to keep in mind with this is that although fixed annuities can provide some additional liquidity that a CD won't, because you have that 10% withdrawal corridor, you are electing to lock your money up for potentially 5 years, or just like my dad mentioned, you can elect a 3-year, a 5-year, sometimes there's even 7-year options available to you.
Yeah, and again, I think what we're doing here is we're moving down the liquidity ladder in terms of assets that are a little bit less liquid, but also at the same time, what we're looking at is creating goals, dates, where maturities make the most sense. So if you're looking for something, as Rob was saying, a 5-year rate, which seems to be kind of optimal right now, that's in the 5% area, which is fabulous. I mean, consider where we were 12 months ago. Being able to lock in a high rate like this is great. You're looking so good that could make sense for you. Babe, what are some of the options that we're also looking at as we're now really talking about going to truly investing?
If this money is truly excess capital and you're not looking at needing it or income from it for a longer period of time, you may start to consider looking at different equity options, potentially dividend-paying stocks or mutual funds, index funds that invest in companies that traditionally pay dividends. So if we're looking towards banks, insurance companies, what people often would refer to as blue-chip companies, that might be a good alternative that also really puts you in a balance where you might be generating some additional income from this capital that you can then either reinvest or siphon off to use down the line in the future.
Yes, and then finally, growth stocks, which are typically a little more volatile. They also have an opportunity for greater returns, possibly, in different markets. But again, what we're talking about now is going from, basically near cash, which are money market accounts, to being truly invested up to stock. So matching the maturity of when you need the money, the liquidity for the need of that money, and also really how is this going to affect your long-term investment portfolio in terms of its balance is extremely important. So lots of things to consider. It's a little bit more complicated. Where do I park this money, right?
Absolutely. Just happening to have known Sue and knowing that she's retired, I had been reading an article about the IRS letting everyone know in advance that their tax returns might not be as lucrative for them if they were expecting a refund in April than they have been in the past. I was wondering, how did Sue actually accumulate this excess capital? Was it through distributions from her retirement account?
No, actually what happened was in her particular case, you're right. The source of the money were distributions that we were making to her on a monthly basis. She was accumulating cash, and the reason being that she, like many folks, have really cut down on the amount of her leisure time spending.
I see.
So that cruise that she was thinking about, decided to put that one off. She also was going to be making some airplane trips, and unfortunately, even though we call everything COVID these days, airplanes, I mean, the truth is a lot of people are picking up viruses on airplanes because you're really in a very close space. Even though they have terrific HVAC and these things, you still are circulating air in a very close space with other folks. And so for some folks, that's a little bit, a little sketchy, as it would be, and that's fine. But we found that in Sue's case, two things. Number one is, my question to her was, since we're seeing you accumulate cash and you have an amount in excess of your emergency fund, again, did you intend or do you intend to go out and spend some of this money for leisure time, whether it was cruises or whatever it might be, maybe home renovations, because frankly the guys you wanted to work with didn't have the time or availability for you? Is this some money that we're going to be using, or do you see dipping in your savings? And maybe what we're doing now is we're getting ready to refill your vault. So in her case, she really said that she didn't see any need for additional leisure spending money, and so we really had a discussion about turning down the faucet a little bit.
Mm.
You know, why pay taxes on income that you're not consuming, especially if you have your emergency fund covered. So I think that's a fundamental dadism, which is don't pay taxes on money you're not using.
Which is a great one, by the way.
And that,
it's easy, right?
And that
Yeah,
really, right? And that really went back to my thought about the IRS, which was for individuals that might be over withholding due to income from earned income, rather, you're still working. Maybe over withholding is a good idea for you, but in my mind, if you're over withholding from your retirement accounts, all you're doing is transferring your retirement assets to the federal government, basically by way of an interest-free loan. So if you're someone that is accumulating extra income inside of your savings accounts because you're taking distributions from your retirement account, you might consider, going back to your financial advisor or your accountant, whomever you happen to work with on your income needs, and maybe adjusting that, because you can always take a little bit more over time, but, you don't want to give the government money in advance when you're not going to earn anything on it.
Yeah, and so curiously, I was going to say in Sue's situation, after our discussion, we really made a decision that it made sense, at least in the near term here, to look at a combination of higher yielding money market accounts, really even through her commercial institution, because they weren't coming out offering and saying, hey, you got this extra money, let's increase your rate. And also something that she could link into her checking account, as well as possibly taking and maybe moving some of that money into some shorter-term or intermediate-term CDs in that particular case, because, frankly, she didn't really want to lock that money up for a longer period of time. And in her case, she didn't really want it subject to market volatility. So that was kind of cool. Now, if it's okay, let me also kind of bring in a little different spin on this, which was with a client of ours, Tina. Mm-hmm. Tina being the same age, being in the same situation, her question came to me was, well, now that I have this excess money, and I'm in a very low tax bracket, does it make sense for me to, and I'd like to, begin to maybe create some Roth IRA accounts for my grandchildren, which is kind of a cool idea, helping them and create the foundation for their long-term savings. And we had a discussion about how old they were, and they were in their early 20s, which meant that, like most folks in their 20s, they're broke. So, it's pretty typically true. They're broke, and if they were married and had young families, they're even more broke, as it would be. So helping them create that financial base was a great idea. Fortunately for Tina in her case, my first question was, are these kids working? Do they have earned income? Because we can't just make a Roth contribution for somebody unless they have some level of earned income. And she said, yes, they're both actively at work, which is great. And I guess the other question I have was, you might want to check with them to make sure that they're not making the maximum contributions, which is kind of doubtful at their age, to their traditional retirement accounts, because they may not even be eligible to do a Roth contribution based on their incomes. So a couple of things to think about, certainly a rather noble and fun goal for her, but again, you have to be careful, because we know if you make over contributions to Roth or even traditional IRAs, there is a penalty the IRS imposes, and you're going to yank that money out.
Right, and it can be a slightly complicated process, especially if you've made contributions and then invested the assets. What's going to happen is you're going to have your financial advisor or the custodian of the bank in which you put those Roth or IRA assets do an analysis of the growth of the investments over time from when you made the over-contribution to when you pulled the money out. So it can be a little bit of a lengthy process. It isn't simply, I should have only contributed $5,000, I contributed $6,000, I need to pull $1,000 out. So you definitely want to try and do the math on the front end as opposed to someone do the math for you on the back end.
So it's fun when you have a little more dough. And it's good to think about these things, and there are always tax implications regardless of what you're doing. So check with your financial advisor. Check with your tax people if you do happen to have, other than TurboTax, on this kind of stuff, right? Because TurboTax doesn't really talk back.
I actually think they have a service now where you can ask questions. I don't know the reliability of those or who will hold themselves accountable.
It's like the automated tech support as you're filling it out. Like, hey, want to know more? And I think that's what it is.
Special tip.
Yeah, who really wants to know anymore? I mean, no, I don't think so. Which is great.
Babe,
I think that was a great question.
Yeah, I think it's time for our first break of the hour.
Well, great. And we're back. And when we come back, we'd love to take your questions on the text line at 84126 or your phone calls at 314-931-5877. Don't touch that dial. Aaron and Rob and I will be right back.
Hi, this is Stuart Rosenblum, president of Stewart's American Mortgage. Stewie! Mortgages are the biggest investment that a person's going to make in their life, yet most people don't know anything about it. Tune in for Mortgages and More with Stewie. That's me, where we can go over all the different types of mortgage programs in simple terms. You, me, Stewie! You'll become an expert after the first show.
Listen to Mortgages and More with Stewie, Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. on KTRS.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Are you a former smoker? The lawyers at Teen Malone are bringing cases against Big Tobacco to hold them accountable for their wrongdoings. If you or a loved one have recently been diagnosed with a smoking-related illness, such as bladder cancer, throat cancer, lung cancer, or COPD, please call 314-800-1117 or visit teenmalone.com/smoking-lawsuit to learn more. That's 314-800-1117. There's no cost to speak with us.
Thank goodness we all made it through the holiday season, but we were busy, so busy we couldn't take advantage of Renewal by Andersen and their pricing for last year. Well, you're in luck, because Renewal by Andersen has extended 2022 pricing into 2023. This month and this month only. Buy one Renewal by Andersen window or patio door and get the second one for half off. And you want something sweeter, Renewal by Andersen has zero interest, zero payments for 18 months. You know how cold it was? Did you see the frost on the windows? Did you see your energy bills go through the roof? Well, guess what? Renewal by Andersen is energy-efficient windows, and you get the energy savings, not to mention buy one and get the second one at half off from Renewal by Andersen. Fibrix windows, they're 2 times stronger than vinyl, and they come in 9 exterior colors. 1877 windows, that's 1877 windows. Renewal by Andersen, RBASTL.com. Get 2022 pricing in 2023, RBASTL.com.
What if everything you got came with a little bit of money? Spicy chicken ramen with a side of quarters, a full tank of gas, and a $5 bill, an entire pantry's worth of groceries, and a pocket full of cash. Well, then you'd be living life on the upside. The first platform that gives you real cash back in real life wherever you roll. Restaurants, grocery stores, gas stations, all cashback opportunities. So order the expensive appetizer, buy a little extra at the store, fill your gas tank till the pump stops. Because with Upside, you can. Start earning cashback just for doing you. Download the free Upside app and use promo code SPICY for an extra $10 cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's promo code SPICY. Promo code SPICY. SPICY for an extra $10 on the free Upside app. Start living life on the upside with the free Upside app.
This is Aaron Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, we're back here on the Big 550 KTRS, Talk Radio St. Louis. It's 9:35. More Straight Talk on Retirement. And we're live and local. We'd love to hear from you. Give us a call today, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
And speaking of the text line, we have a text that just came in, and it says, do you expect a deepening of the recession in 2023, and should we expect our retirement accounts to continue to dwindle? Well, it was a little bit of a bright spot this week. I'll let you guys take it from there.
Yeah, the markets definitely did show some strength this week. I think we have two separate questions here, which would be recession fears, which is economic. Now, sometimes that can play out in the market. However, those two things don't necessarily have to always line up. And then the second question being, what are your retirement accounts potentially look like for 2023?
Well, I don't know. I don't think anyone has the real answers, clear answers to either of those questions. I would suggest that at least as of this moment, my thoughts are that the recession is going to continue until a point where we see the unemployment rates rise, which hopefully should damper inflation, as well as have the Fed stopping to, or at least reducing to maybe a dribble, the rates that they're increasing on interest rates today. And frankly, as Aaron was saying, the recession and investment results are not necessarily totally linked. In reality, if we haven't seen the bottom of the market today, which I will tell you, I don't think that we have. We're really in a situation where we have a really great buying opportunity. The tough part is, at times, to hold your nose and to dive in when things don't look good. Because the truth is, like anything else, if you go to the grocery store, you tend to look to purchase items that you wish, that you like, when they're on sale as compared to when they've raised prices.
Right.
So why buy the good stuff? You want to buy the good stuff when it's on sale. So I think we have a buying opportunity that's here available in the future, and I'm hopeful. I'm not suggesting this, but I'm very hopeful that we'll see a turnaround sometime by the end of the summer, maybe beginning of fall.
I don't disagree with any of that data, and I think, depending upon how you're invested, you may have seen some returns towards the beginning of the year. We may have seen a little bit of a rotation away from the growth side of the market to the value side of the market. We had some banks report earnings this week. I've almost decided to defer to the people with the money, which would be the banks, who reported good numbers for the last quarter, but they also reported guidance that they'll be setting aside money for the event of defaults and delinquencies on loans, which just says to me that doesn't necessarily have direct market implications, but it certainly has recession implications, which means they're anticipating that there will be more unemployment, implying that people aren't going to be able to make those loan payments either on time or at all for a certain amount of time.
How important are tactical adjustments to your portfolio mix in relation to how much your portfolio might decline or advance? Like, if people are making, or their advisors are making, periodical adjustments, like adding more value or more dividend-paying stocks, would that be the kind of thing that people should be getting with their advisors about to discuss, what their strategy is going forward in a volatile market?
Dad, tell me what that percentage is, but it's something like 90% of your overall returns over an extended period of time are based on your mix, which is your equities to or stocks to bonds to cash configuration. It isn't even necessarily what you are invested in those particular buckets, but simply your overall balance of portfolio.
Yes, there have been many studies that have been done with portfolio managers over periods of time, and this study's been done 2 or 3 times. That really reflects that. So buying the good stuff is important, but your mix is really what's the primary determinant of your return. And, Rob, to getting to your point, I think it's very important, crucially important, to look at your mix. Not just stock to bonds to cash, but also that internal mix. I have to tell you, it's almost 6 months ago. We made the decision to reduce our exposure to growth, and we did it very significantly to value, and which is the dividend-paying stuff, the more conservative things. And what happened was, frankly, I think that we've gone up and down, but the level of volatility is certainly reduced in our client portfolios, which I think is important. And at the same time, I think we're now in a tactical position that when we feel like the market really is going to make that turn, that we'll be able to. We're hopeful that we can. The result will be we're going to be riding the wave back up in terms of recapturing some of those returns that were lost in 2022. That's my story, and we're sticking to it, right, babe?
Absolutely. We've got another text question on deck.
Oh, this one's rather interesting. And the texter writes, what would be a good $100,000 investment for a couple at the ages of 81 and 78 with an annual income of $189,000 a year currently and no major burdens, as related to mortgages or other monthly bills? Way to go, couple.
Right?
That's a great place to be in.
Yeah, I think my first question, and I'm sure, honey, Aaron, you would agree with this, is tell me about the other members of your family. We find that our clients, especially as they get deep into their 70s, early into their 80s, become extremely concerned about passing assets on. And if this $100,000, which I'm assuming at this point is outside of retirement plans, if it were invested and grew over a period of time, after the second spouse was passed away, those assets could pass on, at least under today's tax law, under a step-up basis, so that the gains that were earned over this period of time wouldn't be the inheritors wouldn't be subject to income tax. So my thought would be, what kind of assets do you think your children and or grandchildren would want to have? Would they really want cash assets, or would they want invested assets? And maybe is it possible, since you have your income covered, certainly I'm sure you have your liquidity covered at the same time in terms of your vault, does it maybe make sense for you to look at investing for growth for those people in the future?
I think that's a great point, and we have quite a few grandmas and grandpas that use some of their excess cash or maybe their planned Christmas or birthday presents to get their grandchildren or even their children sometimes more interested in investing. For example, if you love to go to Disney with your grandchildren, we've had clients that have decided that maybe a few shares of Disney would be a fun thing to have their children, or grandchildren start to learn about how the market works. Or like Dad said, maybe you're being a little bit more prudent and it's less about a teachable moment and more about what do you think is going to be the most, provide the most return or growth over the long term. So that $100,000 could become significantly more when your family inherits it.
Well, what about, say, life insurance? maybe create a tax-free death benefit for one of those grandchildren if you have them. And, as Jeff says to me all the time, how different would your life be if at 22, 25, 27 you inherited a large sum of money? Would you have, would that have made, the trajectory of your life any different? Would you have gone to different schools? Would you have become a homeowner sooner? Would you have been a little bit more entrepreneurial? So, there's a lot of different options that this couple has.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking, and that was a good input there, Rob. But getting life insurance in the 80s isn't as easy, but
maybe on the young buck, she's only 78.
Life is good, and we're doing that often for clients. So good thinking there. The other thing I was thinking was back to our previous discussion in the previous thing about Tina. One thing that Tina recognized was that her children, because of their ages, weren't in a position where they could make retirement plan contributions the way that they wanted. We've had several clients do this, where they've gone to their children and said, "Hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to gift you $10,000, but what we want you to do is agree to go to your employer and reduce your take-home pay, reduce your wages by $10,000, moving that into a retirement account. So what we'll be doing is, I guess basically, we call it reverse engineering, but what we'll be doing is replacing that income, the extra contributions that you're making to your 401ks, by the gifts that we're making." And as soon as we're done dealing with this question, I think it's good, because it's also your birthday pay, is to talk about gifts. Because
will I be receiving
also
some?
Increased. It's better to give than to receive. So have you ever thought about giving your mom a gift?
Except
That's
for
right.
If it's your birthday. There has to be a limit here. But what I think we should do before we get to all of the gifts that you'll be lavishing me with on my birthday, we should take our second break of the hour.
That's great. Don't touch that dial. Aaron and I and Rob will be right back.
Are you tired of high prices, high pressure, and high anxiety, looking for siding, windows, doors, and decking? Silly ads claiming to give you 2 free windows, 50% off labor, or no interest payments? My grandson Elijah says,
"Are you kidding me?"
Let's talk about exterior building products that are durable, attractive, and energy efficient, that increase your home's value and saves your hard-earned money. My name is Julius Korsanik. I'm celebrating 50 years in this industry. Our local and family business is Wholesale Siding Depot. Please visit our website at wsdepot.com. That's wsdepot.com. For name brand windows from Anderson and Viwinco, Certainty Vinyl Siding, Provia and Masonite doors, AZAC, Envision, Fortress, and Trex decking, to name a few. We also offer a free contractor referral service to take care of your installation and labor needs. Keep it local and professional. Please visit wsdepot.com. That's wsdepot.com.
This is Aaron Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
It's the most wonderful time of the year, football playoffs. And whether your game is college or pro, watch the next big match with a Dogtown pizza. Root for my favorite, pepperoni and peppercini, or Heidi's favorite, the veggie. Or why not have both while you root for your favorite team? With over 11 different varieties, you can have a different pizza every week and stock up for that big game at the end. It's the most wonderful time of the year, and I'm rooting for Dogtown Pizza.
For adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy, now there's Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months, and Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Nothing in me go hand in hand. Nothing on my skin, that's my new place. Nothing is every day.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, you could achieve 90% clearer skin. Ask your doctor about the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
I have a dream. My poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream.
As we celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day, let's all remember his dream and truly make it a reality. Happy birthday, MLK. From the Big 550, KTRS. Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550, KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
That's right. We're back here on the Big 550, KTRS. It's almost 9:51. We've got about 8 minutes left in the show. We'd love to hear from you. Our phone lines are open, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. Babe, if we don't have any, we don't have any text messages that we're waiting to go through, I'd like to go back for a second. You know, one thing that we don't talk about, we're talking maybe about it more than we have in the past, and Rob really made a great point, is, you know, the power of insurance products. You know, insurance products should be and they are, frankly, a part of just about everybody's portfolio, whether you own a home, you drive a car.
Your health insurance.
Your health insurance, your liability coverage, etc. People think of insurance as necessary evils. Well, I mean, it's really not evil. What we're talking about is passing on risk, sharing risk with someone else. What every contract that's purchased, whether it's a life insurance or annuity contract, needs to have, I really think, again, using the word purpose, it really needs to be purposed. There's no such thing as a good deal. What we're really talking about is, once I made a purchase, what's the real function of that? And I was going to say, I thought that was, you know, one thing that we're doing with many clients, we're discussing this today, is older life insurance policies. You know, folks have purchased a life insurance when they were in their 20s, 30s. They've had these contracts for long periods of time. Some of them are small permanent contracts, permanent life insurance, other larger term insurance products that they've had over time. They've had the opportunity to build their wealth. And so therefore, the death benefits, which were really there as a backstop to create wealth where wealth hadn't been, people go, is there a real purpose? This thing we were just talking about, a little discussion that we had about with the next generation, passing assets on to the next generation. I can't tell you how many of our clients we're having discussions with about using these life insurance policies for inheritance for children or grandchildren, either for creating capital for them,
like Rob mentioned earlier. Yep.
Exactly, which was great. I mean, as Rob commented, you know, I like to think, how would life have been different if I inherited a lump sum of capital in my 20s and 30s? I mean, could that have taken off the financial pressure off of my life? Could have reduced it a little bit? Could I have been in a situation where maybe I was more entrepreneurial than I was? Would it have been able to help me enable my family? Whether it was better food, better vacations, better soccer, whatever it would be. Tax-free death benefits can be an extremely valuable part of anyone's portfolio. And, you know, Aaron, I know that you had a case a couple of weeks ago you were working with Rob with, where we had a client who was a widow. She and her husband, actually her husband, had created a annuity contract of about $100,000. It had grown to $150,000, so the first $50,000, if they were going to pull money out, would be would be taxable. And instead of cashing in that contract at his death, what we did was Robert recommended, which I thought was brilliant, was to do a what we call a spousal assumption, so that she became the new annuitant, so the contract could continue to grow, income tax deferred. But she wanted to increase the value of the inheritance to her children. Well, this was a source of capital where we were able to use the withdrawal privilege, that 10% per year. Fortunately for them, they were out of the surrender period, so they could pull as much as they would. But we decided, let's say within the 10%, pull out approximately $15,000 a year, which they were able then to do is she went and purchased an insurance contract, which created about $400,000 of death benefits for her 2 grandchildren and her 2 children. Repurposing that old contract, which was basically savings accumulation, into further wealth creation. Lots of creative things to do when you already have the capital. But repurposing these assets is certainly something that we're talking about all the time, because getting rid of things that were valuable that you purchased many years ago can be expensive. And in this particular case, if we had surrendered the contract at her husband's death, she would have had a $50,000 taxable event. Who wants that?
Nobody.
No, that's right. So what we're able to really do is begin to, if you think about it, turn on the faucet slowly and drain some of that income from that contract and turn it into, frankly, a larger tax-free asset later. So a cool idea.
And we have another texter coming through the text line, and the texter asks, can Missouri teachers receive survivor benefits for Social Security from their spouse if they're receiving a pension as a teacher? Thank you.
So on face, this seems really unfair. Interestingly enough, we have a teacher that has been planning for retirement for maybe 3 or 4 years at this point. Unfortunately, she is a widow as well. Her spouse passed away several years ago. She was claiming the survivor benefit from her husband while she was still working because she hadn't accessed her pension benefit through peers quite yet. But now that it's time to retire, she's going to elect that peers pension. Unfortunately, what happens is all Social Security benefits, your own, a spousal, or a survivor benefit, if you are a Missouri teacher, are going to be subject to the windfall, which approximately works out to at least 2/3 lost of any benefit that you're looking to collect from Social Security. So you do still have some access to the survivor benefit. However, it's going to be reduced by whatever your windfall calculation happens to be. And this is almost in line with what would happen if you weren't a member of the teacher's pension and you had your own Social Security benefit, which is when your spouse passes away, you have the opportunity to elect the larger benefit. If your benefit was larger, you keep it. If your spouse's benefit was larger, you're able to switch over to that, but you don't get to collect both. So Social Security is attempting to do that same thing, which is you'd be able to elect the survivor benefit. However, you're not going to be able to take peers and the survivor benefit. You'll just get a portion of that survivor benefit.
It was sad. It was sad.
One of my favorite childhood songs.
Well, I had to teach you how to sing in the car, honey. It was several years ago. I won't say
5,
how many years ago.
Maybe.
Yeah,
at most.
Yeah, and you sing like your mom, which is fun.
Horrible.
Which is a lot of fun. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. We're getting ready to wrap up hour number 1 at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. And don't forget, you can always give us a call for a coaching session at 314-863-0008 or go to our website, jblfinancial.com, and click on the contact us section, right?
That's right. And in our second hour of the show, I know we've got a great Medicare topic to discuss, as well as time to answer your questions and text. So please keep them coming. 84126 from the text line and 931-5877 if you'd like to be live on the show with us. We'll be back after the news in just a few moments. Don't touch that dial.
Be listening next week at 9 for more straight talk on retirement with your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus, on the Big 550 KTRS.
The Big 550
KTRS St. Louis.
Thursday, and Congress is heading for a political showdown over raising it. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen urging lawmakers to pass legislation to boost or temporarily suspend it to avoid default. House Republicans want to use the moment to force a cut in spending. ABC's M. Wynn is in Washington.
Some analysts suggesting a default could crash financial markets and potentially lead to a credit downgrade. And if the issue drags on, it could lead to a partial government shutdown. Raising the limit does not mean more spending, but rather just allows the government to finance existing obligations, including tax refunds, Social Security, and Medicare payments.
At least 9 people killed in a devastating tornado outbreak across the South. Governors of Alabama and Georgia have both issued a state of emergency. ABC's Derek Dennis has more.
Entire neighborhoods devastated, homes and businesses destroyed in Selma, Alabama, when a confirmed EF2 tornado hit the historic city Thursday. In all, more than 40 tornadoes were reported across 7 states. An EF2 tornado hit LaGrange, Georgia, knocking down power lines.
And California is preparing for another powerful rain and snowstorm moving in tonight after weeks of heavy rain. Governor Gavin Newsom.
I know how fatigued you all are. Hope you are, just maintain a little more vigilance over the course of the next weekend, and we'll get through this.
President Biden facing new investigations into the classified documents found in his former office and Delaware home.
President Biden back at his Delaware home, where a handful of classified documents were found in his garage. The president leaving the White House, ignoring questions. Silent on the news, a special counsel has been appointed to look into his handling of classified material. House Republicans launching new investigations, demanding answers about what exactly was in those documents found in the president's home.
ABC White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks. A lottery ticket in Maine has won the Mega Millions $1.35 billion jackpot. You're listening to ABC News.
The toilet sneeze. Every flush spews bacteria onto surfaces that little Bobby touches and then spreads to the light switch and everywhere else in the house. Yuck. So Dad uses Microban 24 to help stop the spread. It's the only sanitizing spray with a long-lasting shield that keeps killing 99.9% of bacteria on surfaces for up to 24 hours. Be confident you're protecting your family with Microban 24. Don't just sanitize it, Microban it.
Hello there. My name is Seychelle, and what makes the Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich original to me is the punch of flavors that's unlike any other. You get the crispy tenderness of the chicken and that hint of sourness from the pickles. Ta-da!
Hey, I'm Juan, and what makes the Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich original to me is you're going to get chicken that's crispy, golden, and juicy. This is the gold standard of chicken sandwiches.
Order the original Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich on the Chick-fil-A app today. Real customers paid for their testimonials.
New Russian strikes on Ukraine's capital today. This is the Kremlin says it's taken the town of Soledar, but Ukrainians say fierce fighting still going on there. An update from ABC's Matt Gutman on the ground in eastern Ukraine.
We can probably hear that siren going off in multiple regions in Ukraine. And those missiles coming into the Kyiv region causing significant damage. Most disturbingly, they apparently landed before the sirens went off there. That as bitter and brutal fighting continues here in the east over the towns of Soledar and Bakhmut.
Officials from China's COVID task force released revised numbers from the country's latest wave of cases today, raising the number of reported deaths to almost 60,000 since relaxing their zero COVID measures last month. But officials are now hopeful that the worst of the wave is now behind them. ABC's Carson Yu has the latest from Hong Kong.
According to the officials, over 90% of the deaths were seniors over the age of 65 with underlying diseases, with the average age being over 80 years old. One silver lining, it appears the peak of their current wave has passed. Authorities say hospitalizations are trending down. However, with the Lunar New Year holidays coming up this week, officials fear a second wave may come as a result.
Lisa Marie Presley will be buried at Graceland next to her son Benjamin, Father Elvis, and other members of the Presley family. Her daughter Riley's rep confirming the plans. This is ABC News.
As a Walgreens pharmacist, I talk with people all the time about little tips and tricks for filling their Medicare prescriptions, like taking advantage of Walgreens 90-day refills to save them a trip, or using Refill by Scan, which is super easy and right on your phone. And for anybody worried about prescription costs, I say, hey, we got you, with low-cost copays on many medications.
Let's talk about making things easier. Walgreens is here. Fill your way and save at walgreens.com/Medicare. See pharmacists for restrictions and exclusions.
Dave Packer, ABC News.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Woohoo! It's hour number 2. Straight Talk on Retirement. I'm Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach.
And I'm Robert Markham, your life insurance and fixed annuity specialist.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, birthday girl. I'm glad you showed up.
Well, you know.
For hour number 2.
I plan to stick around for the full morning. I'll be taking the next 4 months off. No.
Fabulous.
Going somewhere warmer, I hope.
You can tag along, maybe.
Nice. I like that. Again, welcome back. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. We're live and local. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
And speaking of the text line, we have another one. And the texter wants to know, is a really great question. Do you incorporate closed-end funds within income portfolios? Thank you, texter.
The answer, I think, simply is, at this point in time, the answer is no. And the reason that I don't, at least I'm certainly not, and I know Aaron isn't recommending these funds, is because they tend to be reasonably illiquid.
Right.
And also, many of these funds do have a high equity component. So in a volatile situation, whether it's preferred stocks, maybe as a part of the portfolio, bonds, etc., probably not the best idea today. If interest rates haven't, if you're looking at an income-oriented one, if interest rates haven't peaked yet, that means you could see potential, have some market value adjustment on those assets, which we have not been doing. As a matter of fact, as we've talked about, we've been looking at trying to clamp down as much as we can, the value of those fixed income investments through a series of intermediate term annuities that are currently fixed annuities that are currently paying a little better than 5%. So
I think
timing is everything.
Right. I think the most valuable piece of that is that just because of the liquidity nature of a closed-end fund, it's not as nimble as other investment selections. However, just like with mutual funds, index funds, ETF funds, each of these funds has a different focus, so you do want to be specific in your portfolio as to what you're looking at.
Yes, and they are subject to risk of loss.
Right.
And especially, because we're looking at a closed-end, it's something that isn't openly traded on the market, like an open-ended mutual fund. It can be extreme. And we've seen that in some cases, especially with higher-yielding investments like junk bonds, lower-grade investment bonds, which offer a higher yield, and they have to, and as interest rates rise, they can get beat up pretty badly. So certainly they can be a very good component, I think, in a more stable rate environment.
Right, and just like you said, Dad, just because it's income-oriented does not mean that it does not have risk of loss. So you do need to be careful when making those selections.
Great text question. All these things are tools, and using, we think, the right tools, hopefully at the right time, will help you get to your goals a little bit faster. So really good text question. We do appreciate that. I was going to say, if we don't have any further text questions or we're not holding for any calls, again at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line, why don't we get into our health insurance segment, sponsored by our very good friends Anthem and Aetna.
Of Missouri. So I've got a great one. Frank had a very interesting situation arise over the last several weeks with a Medicare client.
And Frank, again, is our Medicare insurance specialist in our office. It's great.
And he'll be with us next week.
That's right. We're going to have Frank live in the studio next week, so you always are welcome to text in your Medicare or health insurance questions today at 84126 or give us a call at 314-931-5877, or you're welcome to save them up next week for when the man is here in the flesh.
And how would they contact Frank through email?
If they wanted to talk to Frank right away, didn't want to wait till next weekend, they can email Frank at Franklin, Frank, L-I-N, at jblfinancial.com, or call our office, 314-863-0008.
Yeah, and I think what's so important here is that Medicare planning is a part of our everyday practice.
That's right.
The transition from typically company-sponsored health insurance plans to Medicare can be confusing, especially if you've gotten the stuff in the mail, you've been deluged. And not really getting a lot of help from the HR department because that's frankly not their job. But people don't go to how do I do Medicare classes, they come to the coaches.
That's right. You don't want to spend your time learning the ins and outs of Medicare, especially when our Congress doesn't even know the ins and outs of Medicare. So leave it to a professional to help you through, because you don't have to pay anything in order to have a Medicare coaching session, especially with Frank. There are never any charges. So if you find that you're in the best spot you can be in, then at least you have that peace of mind.
No charges, expert advice. What could go? I mean, how do you lose?
Exactly. By not taking advantage.
Exactly.
So Margie took advantage when she turned 65 back in May. Dad, lean away from the microphone. Thank you. You know, just being helpful for our listeners, making it more enjoyable. Anyway, Margie came in to see Frank when she turned 65 in May. She was previously working. She was planned to retire, so she wanted to line everything up for May 1st. She was going to retire at the end of at the end of April for a May 1st effective date, because Margie knew that the month you turn 65, you are eligible for Medicare on day one. You don't technically have to wait until your birthday, just your birth month. So she was going to leave work. She jumped onto Medicare. Frank helped her select a Medicare Advantage plan in this particular case. You know, she filled out a medical questionnaire. She gave us her prescriptions and her physicians. Frank was able to walk her through what her best options were. She landed on a Medicare Advantage plan. Everything was all set up. And then Frank said, hey, we'll talk to you in October for open enrollment so we can review your coverage and make sure that your health insurance is still matching up with your health care needs. Well, just a week ago, Margie called and said, Frank, my employer offered me the opportunity to come back to work full time, and they're going to offer me health insurance again, but I'm already on Medicare. What do I do? So Frank said the first thing that we want to do is take a look at what your employer is actually offering you. So please pull together what that premium is going to be for you every month and what the plan looks like, which just means what's your deductible, what do your co-pays look like, and what is your maximum out of pocket for the year. Well, it turned out Margie's responsibility on a monthly basis was only going to be $50 a month for her health insurance through her employer. The deductible was going to be $750, and her maximum out-of-pocket was $2,000. So this is one of those excellent plans. Frank didn't mention who Margie was going back to work for, but it sounds like it was a relatively large employer, just based on the fact that her share of the premium was so low and the benefits were so good. So Frank said, you know, this really isn't a competition here because you're already paying $170 a month for your Medicare Part B alone. Now, in Margie's case, she wasn't paying anything for her Medicare Advantage plan, and her maximum out-of-pocket was about $2,900, but she's going to save at least $120 a month by disenrolling in Medicare leaving that Medicare Advantage plan and just going back to her employer's coverage, Margie was really concerned, if I'm already enrolled, what happens if I disenroll? Do I have a penalty? Am I even able to disenroll from Medicare? So the great news is that Frank was able to walk her through the process, which was, unfortunately, you have to get on the phone with Medicare and Social Security to disenroll from your Medicare Part B benefit, which the government does allow you to do. So you can disenroll from Medicare and go back to an employer-based plan as long as it's considered as good or better than Medicare. And in Margie's particular case, it absolutely was. So she returned to her old policy. And whenever Margie decides to retire, or if her employer changes the benefits in a way that she doesn't like, Margie can then go back to Medicare using a special election period. So the great thing about Medicare is it gives you a lot of options. Margie originally used her initial election period, which is the 7 months surrounding the month that she was born, to enter Medicare. Then she got a better deal. So she decided to leave her Medicare policy, which is completely fine. Once you leave Medicare Part B, you're automatically disenrolled from your Medicare Advantage plan because you have to have Part B in order to have a Medicare Advantage plan or a Medicare supplement if that had been what Margie had chosen. And then Medicare is going to allow Margie a brand new election period when she loses coverage through her employer, when she either re-retires or she decides she doesn't like the group health insurance plan through her employer anymore, because Medicare is the only coverage that allows for voluntary disenrollment as a special election option for you. So great thing is Margie gets to leave Medicare. She'll get to elect it again as if it never happened down the line when she's ready, and she can, unfortunately, she'll have to go through the entire process all over again, decide which Medicare Advantage plan or supplement is the best choice for her, and she'll be able to re-enroll when she's ready.
All's well that ends well.
Right, but the great thing was she had a coach, someone really to guide her through the process to make sure that everything lined up correctly, because another important thing that Frank asked was, well, have you spent any money on your current policy through Medicare? Because unfortunately, you're not going to have a deductible carryover at that point. You know, Medicare is not going to transfer the money that you've already spent onto your employer's plan. So the good thing was, since it was right at the beginning of the year, she hadn't spent anything yet. And then the second thing was, you know, making sure that everything lined up. Some employers have waiting periods, meaning, you know, you have to be employed for 30, 60, 90 days before you can actually access the benefit. So that might have impacted when Margie actually terminated her Medicare coverage. So it's important to have someone to chat with when you're making these decisions.
Understanding the algebra. That's really what it comes down to. So that sounds like it was a very good coaching session. And, you know, this is something that, fortunately, we've been very much involved with for the last 10 years since Aaron joined me, as well as helping other small companies, medium-sized companies, with their health insurance, understanding both sides of the equation, which is corporate benefits as well as Medicare, can be extremely valuable for clients. And, you know, even though open enrollment is over, our working with our listeners, our clients, isn't. So it's a fun thing to do all year long. So I can't wait to see Frank next week.
Well, you won't see him, but you'll hear him.
There you go. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from text line. Babe, do you think if we don't have any text questions at this moment, let's hope that line will get all full, and maybe we should take our first break of the hour?
Let's take our first break of the second hour, and when we come back, we'll be here to answer those questions for you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
Now is when Coventry turns confusion into clarity. Coventry Healthcare has got a simple approach to care. By listening to their members, Coventry can make plans that work harder for you and your budget. The result? They offer great service and clear costs. If you're looking for a plan that's more about you, give them a call at 1-855-338-9551, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's 1-855-338-9551. Now is the time to call Coventry Healthcare.
If you're turning 65 this year, you face one of the most critical choices for your retirement game plan, enrolling in Medicare Part B and choosing your Medicare supplement. I will help you safely navigate this process and find the health insurance plan that best works with your new Medicare coverage. Getting started is easy. Call me at 314-863-0008, 314-863-0008 to arrange for a free health insurance coaching session, or email me at aaron@jblfinancial.com.
Now is when a small change can make a big difference. If you're not happy with your current Medicare coverage, take a look at Coventry Healthcare. They have a wide range of plans with great service and clear costs, including medical and drug coverage in one simple plan. Just call 1-855-338-9551, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. That's 1-855-338-9551. Now's the time to call Coventry Healthcare.
Before the XFL, way before the greatest show on turf, St. Louis was the proud home of the Big Red.
Now, terrific Terry Metcalf and the Cardinals are anxious to show the world that the best is yet to come.
It's KTRS Sports Director Brendan Weesey. Join Martin Kilcoyne and me Friday, January 20th, as we look back on some of the greatest football ever played here in St. Louis, as we honor the Big Red with a special roundtable.
The Big Red Retrospective.
Brought to you by Marie Davila.
Exclusively on the Big 550. KTRS. Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
That's right. We're back with some more Straight Talk on Retirement here on the Big 550 KTRS. It's about 10:21. No little time left in the show. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
And speaking
honey, I was going to say, before we get to our text, we probably don't mention this often enough, but we're busy, and it's fun to be busy.
Well, one of us is busy.
Visiting with new listeners. Listen, honey, if you had to deal with all this rain,
if I had to deal with all this rain.
Whoever saying that it doesn't rain in Southern California was a liar.
Well, I mean,
okay.
as I am busy seeing all of our current clients, seeing prospective clients, they all do want to know if you have been washed away by all of the rain, or if there's flooding, or if you are safe and sound.
Right. Have you seen any or been exposed to any
flash floods?
Yeah, not near you, but you could say, well, a couple miles away, they were in a hairy
They're
situation.
building the ark.
Right, they're a little bit of a mudslide working. Have you seen anything like that?
All I can tell you is the walking par 3 golf course, which is right behind my home, I'm above the hill, has been closed for 3 days. Driving range have been closed. I mean, these folks don't know how to deal with water. They really don't. So it's been a little messy. But no mudslides, and I will say that I am at least squeaky clean because I don't have an issue with the rain. So it's good to get a shower every once in a while.
Thank goodness for that.
Amen. So in either way, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. What I was mentioning was that we are busy. And while I'm out of town, Aaron is seeing all of our new and prospective clients, our listeners, because that's really who comes to see us, and their friends and family. Coaching session is fun. It's free at our offices in Clayton. We love Clayton. It used to be in Clayton. Now it's in all of that. We have free parking, reserved spaces.
Man,
treats.
It has drinks, right? Treats.
Best coffee in town, updated treats. Thank you, which I know Rob has set aside the ho-hos for me, so it's all good.
They've been strategically placed in your desk.
It's terrible.
Easy enjoyment.
Well, only one person can have a sugar high at one time in our office.
Everyone that comes in to see us so far has been telling me about how they're on New Year's diets. We don't listen to that in our office, so you can take the treats for the road or for the grandkids or your someone who's going to enjoy them. You can't leave without something.
Oh, you're on a diet? Not today, bub.
Not today. Not today.
diet, that means dying to eat, right? That's my diet.
Well, it's supposed to be a fun experience coming to see us. We're planning for the next chapter for what you've been planning for your entire working career. So who wants to eat a Nutri-Grain bar when you talk about that? Nah.
Poho's much preferable.
Right. Brownie, popcorn,
Absolutely.
Something good.
And so, as long as they're in my desk, Rob will have a job, and he'll be back on the show. So thank you. Which is a lot of fun. So, Dave, I was going to say, is it time for us to? Is it appropriate for us to go to the text line?
Well,
do we have a text that we need to answer, or
as opposed to the text line, we have a live caller. Judy is on the line with us this morning.
Good morning, Judy.
Good morning, Rob, and happy birthday to Aaron.
Oh, thank you, Judy. I appreciate that.
And, okay, did you get the popcorn, or did Kelly eat it all?
Kelly ate it all. She gave it to her lovely children, so it was not
I'm
lost.
Sorry.
Not sorry.
I'm glad she enjoyed it.
We have to spread the wealth around a little bit.
I guess.
There you go.
I guess. Well, I wondered, because when I called yesterday, Missy didn't know, so I thought, okay, she had her personal little snack, and that's fine. I'm sorry you guys missed out.
It's okay. It made her happier when she came back from her holiday break.
Oh, well, that's good.
Right.
So
I'm waiting for the blueberries. Go ahead.
You have to be local to get treats from Judy. We made that rule.
Yes. Well, blueberries aren't until June, so hopefully you'll be back in St. Louis by then.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So I had one of my daughter-in-laws call me the other night. She is changing jobs. And she currently has a Roth with her current employer. And she has the option of starting a Roth with a new employer. So her question was, can she have two Roths, or can she roll her current Roth into the new one that she starts with her new employer?
The answer is probably yes to both, which is if she wanted to keep the old Roth, as long as she has $5,000 in the account, she'd be able to keep it. But she also has the option, if she has over $5,000 or under $5,000, to roll that into the new employer's Roth plan.
Yes, and that's pretty simple to do.
Yeah, she would just reach out to her current employer and ask them if they have transfer paperwork, and most likely they'll send her back to the previous employer, and she'll be able to either go online now or call the plan administrator and have them direct the Roth money into her new Roth account. So it'll be a tax-free transfer, or it's also called a trustee-to-trustee transfer. And usually we recommend that people do this because that way their money is following them, as opposed to having to keep track of different employer-based accounts, especially because when it's an employer-based account, she doesn't have control over where it sits anymore. If the employer decides to move plans, she's going to have to make sure that she follows along with them, because it could get lost over time. We've definitely had clients that can't find previous 401k money because their plan administrator has been changed multiple times over multiple years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the only other two things that she might want to take a look at is if she's purchasing mutual funds, which is typical as a selection in her new Roth employer's plan, are the expenses for those funds equal or less than the expenses in her current Roth, assuming she has enough over that $5,000 limit to keep money in that old plan? And that would be, and or secondarily, is the old money invested in employer stock? Because that won't transfer.
Oh.
So those would be a couple of the things for her to look at. Most likely she's probably in mutual funds. And again, I would suggest to her to look at the expenses, old plan versus new plan, so that she's not, and we've seen sometimes where a transfer doesn't make sense because Aaron saw a situation I know a couple of months ago where transferring money to the same fund in a new employer plan was actually more expensive.
So there are a few things to research.
She said the 401k is all target-based. Would the Roth be target-based too?
Usually they have similar options available in both.
Yeah, that's usually the target the target plan maturities are typically used as default options in the plan. So the answer is yes, Judy. And really, this information is very readily available to her, either directly from her employer or the plan sponsor, or even the website where the plans are at. She can look up those fund expenses. So,
yes.
Good thinking, good advice from
me.
Mom, as usual.
Of course.
Okay, you guys.
Well, that's sure.
Well, Erin, have a good birthday.
Thank you, Judy. I appreciate it. You have a good day, and say hello to your husband for us.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Always nice to hear from Judy.
It is. She's got a great number of questions. She's got a great variety of questions, which most people do have over time. You know, working, you have different questions, and when you're preparing to retire than when you're in retirement. And then, of course, you know, your children and grandchildren, they all have questions too.
Yeah, and the nice thing for Judy, as she knows, is that as one of our clients, her children are certainly more than welcome to give us a call, and we're happy to provide them with some advice, especially in regard to these type of transactions, even assisting them and giving them some ideas about fund investment and as well as fund allocations, and that's really fun to do.
That's right. You know, our focus is certainly on individuals that are getting ready to retire or already retired, but we consider family members of individuals getting ready to retire or already retire a direct impact on your ability to do that in a lot of cases. Or it's just part of everyone's game plan to either be of assistance to their family or be charitable or help their family, their grandchildren, and their children do things they weren't able to do while they were working.
Yes, and talking about it, and as we're waiting for your calls at 314-931-5877 or text questions, let's talk about annual gift giving, if we may.
I love that idea, especially on this momentous day in which gifts are top of mind for all,
honey,
I'm sure.
And I'm sure that you want to remind me that it's always better to give than to receive, so we'll just chalk that up for now. But the gift tax...
I mean, on other days, I would be happy to remind you of that.
There you go. This one I woke up with, so thank you. So the gift tax exclusion for 2023 has been increased to $17,000. It was $16,000 for 2022. So as a result, you can give
more
up
money.
up to $17,000 to as many people as you want in 2023 without having to worry about paying federal gift tax.
So
quick,
that means
quick question: if you're a married couple, does that go up to $34,000?
Yes, sir.
Why did you steal my thunder? I was about to say that means that my
They
gift
can give
should be around $34,000. Right.
Let's go.
I
hear
don't
silence.
know.
Was that you writing the check out?
I'm just thinking that many of our listeners are just thinking, what's the gift of being able to be on the radio 52 weeks a year? What a wonderful gift. Well, it was $32,000 last year, but this year it's $34,000.
My prices are rising.
And again, when we're talking about gift tax, what we're talking about is if you're giving more than that amount, you are required to file a gift tax return with the federal government. And also, as another reminder, there is no income tax or gift tax that's made to the person who is the recipient of the gift.
They don't have to pay taxes on the gift.
There is only the responsibility of paying taxes would be on the donor, the person giving the gift. And again, there are some exceptions, right?
There are some exceptions, which is nice. So if you stay under the gift tax amount, which was $17,000 per person, then you don't have to file the return and you don't have to pay taxes.
That's right. And also there are specific things that are also not really considered gifts. Tuition or medical expenses that you pay for someone They call those the educational and medical exclusions.
And so you have to be
Also,
careful with that because you need to pay those institutions directly on behalf of the individual. So if you have a child or a grandchild in college and you would like to assist with the tuition, you have to pay the institution directly. You don't send them the money to then pay the institution.
Right. And gifts, which are truthfully transfers between spouses, there is a lifetime exemption on the level of those gifts. So you can transfer assets back and forth between spouses. And many people, at least in the past, consider doing that for estate planning purposes as a way to deal with what we call the unified credit, which today is about $12.5 million per person, and there is a carryover provision for if you don't use that. And the final one is gifts that are made to a political organization for its use.
Nah.
We don't do that.
Or
but also
recommend
gifts
that
to,
necessarily.
Right. But also gifts to qualified charities, which are 501c3 charities, are also, and they can be deductible. Again, based upon they're not includable as income, but they can be deductible based upon whether you're itemizing your deductions or not. So all gifts by the IRS are considered taxable gifts, which is why many folks don't make gifts of appreciated assets to family members during their lifetime. And the reason is that when you receive a gift, if it's not cash, you have to measure it by the fair market value of the property on the date of transfer. But the basis of that gift, which is received by what they call it the donee versus the donor, is actually the cost basis of that gift from the donor. So, as an example, let's just assume for fun that you purchased a stock or a mutual fund and you paid $10 per share. If you gift that security to someone else, lifetime gift, and it's appreciated to, let's say, $15 per share, if that person that was then to turn around and sell that property, they would have to pay capital gains on the difference between your basis at $10 versus the fair market value of $15, which is why gifting at death, that step up in basis, can be extremely valuable as an estate planning tool, but also as an income tax planning tool.
Right.
So that's a big deal, and curiously enough, we're obviously visiting with folks that have accumulated assets during their lifetime. And in many cases, because of the prior reporting requirements, we find that the cost basis of many securities, whether they're mutual funds or individual stocks, hasn't always been carried over in the past from one investment advisory firm or plan sponsor to the next. And a lot of times that cost basis is lost. So those assets, I hate to use the term, but we really consider those in many cases dead weight in the portfolio unless they're being used to gift to a charity. And typically what they're then doing is they're being held until the death of the donor, that person, so that the recipient of those assets gets a step up in basis to the fair market value at the date of death, so that they then sell it subsequent to that. What's the taxation of those benefits after death, babe?
The nice thing is the taxation of those benefits after death is you get the step up in basis to the fair market value of the security. Meaning,
so let's just use that same example. So someone inherits stock that their parents had a base of 10. It's really worth 15. They inherited at $15 per share, as an example. If they were to sell it at $15 and a penny per share, they would have to pay the gain on the penny per share. If they sold it at $14.99, they would get to recognize a loss of a penny per share. And if they sold it at the value of the security, then guess what? It's all tax free.
That step up in basis is extremely valuable.
Yes, and also, if folks haven't seen, I don't know, honey, if you saw this yesterday, but somebody from one of the House of Representatives, people from Ohio, has reintroduced a provision to end the step-up in basis. And I was going to say that it's extremely important that, and it's difficult for us to really watch the legislation that's happening, because I think that with the new exemption limits being up to $12.5 million per person, which is, you can pass that much property estate tax-free, federal estate tax-free to family members. Without the cost basis step-up, you're talking about a huge amount of federal income tax recognition, and frankly, that could be something that could destroy family farms, businesses, etc. The ability to transfer assets between generations, because you don't have to worry about it with your spouse, because those are unlimited during life or death, is an extremely valuable planning tool. And frankly, if they were to pass this type of legislation, we would be very, very busy, because it would really change the whole estate planning arena, I think.
I don't disagree with that. Hopefully, just like they were attempting to tax unrealized gains, some of these things are just ideas they throw at the wall.
I didn't get that at all. How do you tax something that hasn't been realized?
Well, you're about to realize it in your checkbook if they decide to tax it.
Because we said so.
Right.
Well, what happens is that you're receiving an appreciated asset, and guess what? You need to pay the tax at that time. So that's something that we hope doesn't happen. At the same time, taking advantage of the $17,000 provision is something that many folks want to and like to do. So it's cool that, again, these continue to grow. And again, it's not it's a use it or lose it. So if you don't use it this year,
it doesn't carry over.
No, it doesn't carry over.
We've got a few text questions on deck, Dad, but I think we should take our second break of the hour, and when we get back, we can answer those text questions.
Well, you got the comm, so don't touch that dial, folks. We'll be right back to answer your questions at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
Now is when a small change can make a big difference. If you're not happy with your current Medicare coverage, take a look at Coventry Healthcare. They have a wide range of plans with great service and clear costs, including medical and drug coverage in one simple plan. Just call 1-855-338-9551, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. That's 1-855-338-9551. Now's the time to call Coventry Healthcare.
If you're turning 65 this year, you face one of the most critical choices for your retirement game plan: enrolling in Medicare Part B and choosing your Medicare supplement. I will help you safely navigate this process and find the health insurance plan that best works with your new Medicare coverage. Getting started is easy. Call me at 314-863-0008, 314-863-0008 to arrange for a free health insurance coaching session, or email me at aaron@jblfinancial.com.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, we're back here on the Big 550 KTRS, Talk Radio St. Louis, to answer your questions at 931-5877 or 84126 from the very active text line. Rob, take it away.
And our first texter says, on a simple 401k, why am I seeing long-term capital gains on last year's December statement? Vanguard Prime Cap 41k in down market.
Well, go ahead, Dad.
Well, what happens is that most fund managers actively buy and sell the individual securities in their accounts. So as a way to recognize those gains, they've made those sales. The nice thing for our texter is that even though there have been some long-term capital gains on some of the sales, which means they actually made money on previous investments, you're not paying income tax on that because it's inside of an individual retirement account, obviously a company-sponsored one, like a simple IRA. Did I do that okay, babe?
I think it was great. We just got Rob over here asleep.
No,
waiting for the next text question.
The screen jumbled on me. It did.
Okay, well, straighten those glasses, my friend. Okay.
And our next texter wants to know, I'm on Humira through my employer, and it costs $5 per month. I'll be on Medicare next year, and the cost of Humira will apparently increase to $500 per month. Will Humira be covered under the $2,000 drug Medicare max that goes into effect in 2026? Thank you.
So this is a great question, and unfortunately no one has the answer to it yet. Because what the bill essentially has done is give the federal government or Medicare the ability to negotiate certain drugs with pharmaceutical companies to cap the prices at about $2,000 per year for specific drugs. So, unfortunately, we don't know which drugs are going to be negotiated on an annual basis. But I would also say that it's important to take a look at the different prescription drug plan offerings available to you, because although it might be $500 retail per month, you probably do have the opportunity to utilize Medicare in order to bring down that monthly cost.
Sounds like a good one.
That's right.
And we've got one more, and I think this segues or piggybacks perfectly on the gift tax exclusions that you guys were talking about earlier. And the texter writes, my RMD for 2023 is $11,000. Are there any things I can do to reduce that amount being reported as taxable income? Thank you.
Well, if you decide to generously gift that $11,000 of required minimum distribution to one of your children, you will have to pay taxes on it. However, if you decided to be charitable to a registered 501c3, a educational institution, a hospital, another charity, you would be able to reduce your required minimum distribution dollar for dollar in terms of taxes and in terms of how much you are required to take by what you donate to one of those organizations.
And this is something that we're very actively speaking with all of our clients about, especially those that are RMD eligible. Like Santa, I guess it's like, make your list and check it twice. Because then what we're able to do is during our coaching sessions, which we're starting now to have with all of our clients to review not only their performance for last year, but especially those folks that are what we call RMD eligible, about where they want the money to go to, et cetera. This is really the time for us to say, okay, where would you like the money to go? And the whole key here is that as the plan sponsor, the holder of that IRA, we're the ones that need to send that money out for them, as compared to them receiving the money and then making charitable contributions. If you don't do it the way that Aaron has suggested, again, you're really subject to, if you have $300 or $400, whatever it is, on the front page of your 1040, or you're subject, or you're not able to do it at all because of that you're not itemized deductions. So very important to do. This is really the one. It isn't even a loophole, but it's really a provision that has been put in the code as a way to enable charitable giving to organizations. And truthfully, there's a ton of folks that need help these days.
And I had a coaching session with a client this week where we were having this exact conversation. They had made charitable donations through their IRA last year. They were planning to this year. And he made mention that, these organizations don't just need money during the holiday time. There are quite a few organizations that have needs throughout the year. So it might behoove you, or you might feel extra charitable throughout the year and be able to make those contributions earlier than December time when a lot of people are making donations.
You know, and one discussion that we had I had with another client this week as well is about timing. You know, as the custodian, there's holding those assets, there's no cost, and there shouldn't be a cost to having checks being sent for you. So doing it in the way that you want, in the amount that you want, at the time that you want, really can be tailor-made to your needs. And at the beginning of every year, which folks will be seeing on their January statements, which I guess they'll get in a couple of weeks after the first of the month, each plan sponsor is going to be required to tell you how much the requirement minimum distribution is for that particular account. And once you've totaled those all up, which we like to do for clients, we can then determine a strategy of where to take the money and when. So it's all good.
Yes, it is.
So that was a really good text question. But again, charitable deductions are truly one of the only ways for you to do this. And you know, often we're asked, well, what if I decide I want to do a Roth conversion? So after I come off the floor, I have to tell them,
He fainted.
I'm making a joke. Exactly. Is that Roth conversions don't apply as required minimum distribution, so you can't double dip. You want to do a Roth conversion that's over and above taking out an RMD for the year. So that's also important.
Right. So, for example, when our texter said that their required minimum distribution was $11,000, if they wanted to convert a portion of their IRA into Roth in the same year, they would have to take the $11,000 distribution. And then if they said, well, I'd like to do a $10,000 Roth conversion, they would then have to take $10,000 from their IRA to convert, meaning their full taxable amount, setting aside any charitable contributions, would be $21,000 for the year.
Yeah, and what's so important about this, and one thing that folks don't always take into consideration with these Roth conversions is that, you know, you're talking about taxable income. And depending upon what your current taxable income is, it could possibly create higher Medicare Part B premiums for you because you've gone over those income limits, and that goes for how many years, babe?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
I was saying is that if you take an excess contribution as a distribution to make a Roth conversion, and that takes you over the income limits.
Oh, for Medicare Part B?
Yes.
So what happens?
How long does that last?
So it only lasts for 1 year, but you won't see the impact for 2 years, because what happens is Medicare does a 2-year look back on your income every single year once you enroll in Medicare for the rest of your life to determine what your Medicare Part B premium should be. So if we use this example, in 2024, someone makes an excess distribution from their IRA, making their taxable income above the initial threshold for the Medicare Part B base premium of $170 a month, then they won't actually see the premium increase on Medicare Part B until 2026, and it will last the full year, and it will, if you have a spouse, it will impact both of your Medicare Part B premiums. It doesn't just impact the individual, for example, husband and wife. If husband takes the distribution from his IRA, pushing up the family's taxable income above the Medicare limit, then both spouses have to pay the additional premium.
Very good. I guess we've got about 7 minutes left in the show.
And we've got one text question to go.
Fabulous. Let's take that text question. We may end up going into the mailbag if you don't feel like we're going to have time to discuss John and Sarah today.
Sure.
And our texter wants to know, can you speak about the legislation allowing 529 accounts to transfer to a Roth IRA for the beneficiary if they don't use the account for college? Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So part of the Secure Act 2.0 that was passed just a few weeks ago allows individuals who have created 529 plans to transfer those 529 plans in the same name. So, for example, you know, little Johnny, you created a 529 plan for his college education. Either he didn't go to college or he had a scholarship and didn't need to use all of the funds from the 529 plan, those can now be converted into a Roth IRA in Johnny's name without any tax consequences as soon as 2024, which is this year.
Wow, that's great.
It is nice. You do want to make sure, though, that the individual that you're doing this conversion for truly isn't going to use those dollars for education, because what happens is that once you convert those assets to Roth, they become locked up for the individual until they're 59 and a half, or they have to fall into one of the exclusions that would allow them to make a distribution without a 10% penalty. Also, if you make distributions from a Roth account before 59 and a half, or if it hasn't been in existence for 5 years, any of the growth that was growing tax deferred will then become taxable to you. So there are some additional strings that come with converting those assets, so you want to be sure that's what you want to do. And now that the law is in place, you have time to do it over the, down the line. It doesn't have to be done this year in order to meet the requirement.
Alrighty. And our next texter says, I have $35,000 in a 403B plan. I want to take it out and put it into a Roth or a traditional IRA. Can I do this?
You want me to take this one, or you take it away?
Well, I'll do the first part. I'll let you do the second part. In terms of moving it to a traditional IRA, because it is a pre-tax plan like an IRA, if you aren't actively at work, I assume that this person's retired, because usually plans don't permit you to make distributions unless you're over the age of 55 as an in-service distribution. You can go directly as a direct transfer to a traditional IRA without any tax. But that's not really the same with a Roth, is it?
No, it's not the same as a Roth. So you do have to meet those initial qualifications that my dad just mentioned, which are you either have to be retired in order to transfer anything out of a 401k or a 403b in this case, or over the age of 55. But if you decide that you'd like to transfer those assets from a 403b into a Roth, you're also going to have to wait till you're over 55 retired, and then you're also going to have to pay taxes on the full $35,000 in order to move it to a Roth. So that could mean one of two things. It could mean, one, that you have to pay the taxes outside of the Roth, meaning you have excess cash available to you, so you could take the $35,000 and directly transfer that full amount into the Roth account, pay the taxes with excess savings. Or you're going to have to pay the taxes on the $35,000 using the $35,000, which means the net amount will only be what is deposited into your Roth account. So for most individuals, we recommend making the transition from pre-tax to pre-tax, and then over the course of time, if a Roth conversion is one of your priorities, we can control the conversions over a period of time versus doing it all at once.
Yeah, and I think that the point you're trying to make here, honey, I think you're doing a good job about it, is it's a timing issue. Doing conversions while you're actively at work and earning income, this conversion to a Roth IRA, which is truly what it is, it would be a Roth conversion, is just adding additional taxable income to your situation. It makes sense in 99.95% of the cases that you wait until you're actually retired and then begin to do the conversion process, because you'll have a lower amount of taxable income. Most likely, if you're married filing jointly, if your total income is less than $90,000 a year, you're going to be in approximately a 11.5% federal income tax bracket. If you're doing it while you're actively at work, it's going to be a lot more than that. So hold on to your horses. If that's something that you want to do, certainly wait until you retire. And as Aaron said, we like to look at this and say, let's stage this out in such a way so that we're minimizing the income tax impact, whether it's over 1 year, 2 year, 3 year period, whatever it might be.
Or we're just deferring making this transition for several years until both you and your spouse are retired. You're in a different income bracket, because then we we're going to try and make these conversions as tax efficient as possible for you versus as expediently as possible for you.
And, income taxes, estate taxes, gift taxes really need to be a part of virtually every transaction thought that you have. I mean, the only real situation you have where you don't have to worry about taxation is where you're making changes inside of retirement accounts, which is a good thing.
Right, and the only other thing you don't have to think about is tuning in next week to us on Straight Talk on Retirement. We'll be back for our normal time again from 9 to 11 a.m., so please don't hesitate to give us a call, 314-863-0008.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.